Welcome back to the Hoops Report on Pittsburgh Sports Now. I'm your host, George Michalowski. Today's Thursday, January 9th, and Duquesne swept St. Joe's on Wednesday night. It was an unbelievable night of basketball in Pittsburgh. I was at the Duquesne men's game taking on St. Joe's, who came into the game highly touted for how much talent they had. Hadn't quite put it all together yet this year, but St. Joe's, look, they're one of the most talented teams in the A10. They have wins over high major programs this year. They're a legit opponent. They were favored in the game against Duquesne men, and Duquesne came out on top. We'll get into that in a second. Duquesne women also defeated St. Joe's. They were playing in Philly. Few great performances out of that one. So I've got you covered with the recaps for both those games. I was sitting courtside next to Zach Weiss, covering the Duquesne men's game. We both actually had the Duquesne women's game on the screen, looking at that throughout the night as well. So got a chance to get eyes on both games. And first of all, the men's game, unbelievable, unbelievably exciting. Like Duquesne men's basketball is exciting again. These players love playing for Drew Joyce. And look, Drew pushed all the right buttons. Drew and his staff, I should say, pushed all of the right buttons on Wednesday night to earn that win. Sure, there were a couple of favorable bounces. Two free throws. Jay Sean Corbett, one of them. I believe Cam Crawford in regulation at the other. But two very favorable bounces on free throws there. But look, they got themselves in a position to compete and to get this game to overtime and to win this basketball game regardless. So, unbelievable performance from Trey Dinkins, 26 points. He was 10 of 20 from the field. Some of those shots, I'm going to make a highlight tape. We will have that up on PSN on my Twitter account later today. Some of Dinkins' shots were absolutely unbelievable. I don't think people on the national side are talking about how great of a portal pickup this was for Duquesne. Like I wasn't even focused on Trey Dinkins out of that whole class this summer. Admittedly, like I looked at Max Edwards as a guy who's going to be a star at Duquesne, and uh, some of these other names that they brought in is okay. Eli Wilborn, he had great numbers at D1. Trey Dinkins is no joke, and he's showing that he can be an elite A10 player. 26 points again, 10 of 20 from the field with some absolutely ridiculous shots, and down the stretch, like some clutch buckets when Duquesne needed it most to hold off that rally from St. Joe's. In addition, David Dixon, man, Stephen Thompson from the PG had a nice tweet. Where were you for the David Dixon game? I mean, this was absolutely an unbelievable performance from Dixon coming off the bench, 17 points, 9 rebounds, and 3 blocks. I don't even know how many of each of those stats were in crunch time in the last few minutes of regulation and then in overtime. But Dixon made play after play when Duquesne needed it most. He was so fired up, and it's just great to see, man. One of my favorite clips that I've seen from any coach in any press conference over the past season of basketball here in Pittsburgh is the clip of Drew Joyce talking about David Dixon and how he approached Joyce and said, "Look, bring me off the bench. Like I think we are going to be better as a team if I'm coming off the bench." Dixon comes off the bench in this game against St. Joe's, man, and played his absolute heart out. Unbelievable performance on the glass, unbelievable performance protecting the basketball rim. I mean, this guy was blocking the biggest shot attempts of the game. And obviously, he hit two 3-pointers, which I didn't know was in his bag. 2 of 3 from three tonight. I believe he was 1 of 4, 1 of 5 on the season from three coming into this game. Just an unbelievably clutch shot there to win it. He had the game winner in overtime. If you haven't seen it yet, again, go over to my Twitter, Michalowski CBB. Got that angle from courtside. Just an unbelievably exciting game and a great performance for David Dixon. Kareem Rozier. Let's talk about Kareem. I mean, this is a guy that doesn't pop out on the opposing team's scouting report in terms of his size, in terms of his averages, his numbers don't pop out off the page. He had 7 points and 7 assists in last night's game. I think his impact as a leader, I think his impact as a passer, as a ball handler, and just a facilitator, the way he was running the offense, especially in that second half, was magnificent. Hats off to him. He played a tremendous game. 33 minutes. Like again, Drew Joyce and his staff pushing the right buttons here. They've got so much talent on this roster, so much talent on this team. And to trust, I mean, Jake DeMichael's out, right? He's out with an injury right now. But just to trust Kareem, the team's, heartbeat, the leader, who isn't afraid to get into his teammates either. Like that's one of my favorite parts about watching Kareem. It's like he's a real leader. He's not afraid to get in the face of his teammate and say like, "Look, you got to be better." Like that happened multiple times tonight. He pulled his teammates aside, like, "Where were you? Why did you do this wrong? What are we going to do to make it better?" You could hear him courtside coaching these guys up. He's like a coach on the floor. So for him to play 33 minutes, contribute with 7 and 7. Made a big three there towards the end of, I believe, regulation, may have been an OT. But just an all around great game from Rozier, who is uh, one of the more inspiring players on the roster, even when things aren't going well. Like he's a guy who's going to fire up the fans, fire up the crowd, fire up his teammates, which he did with Dixon. I mean, after all those huge plays that David Dixon made, it seemed like Kareem was running over, jumping on him. There's a great video of him jumping on David Dixon after the game-winning shot. So just a great win for the Duquesne men's program. St. Joe's came in with a lot of hype. Like I said, they were favored in this game by 2.5 points. Duquesne gets the job done. The Dukes have won 5 of 6, and they went from being 2-8 to now 7-9. Duquesne is playing really exciting basketball. They're a talented group, and they are playing hard for that staff. And it is clear that they want to win with each other and for each other. So just great to see out of Duquesne, especially after that rocky start to the Joyce tenure. Going over to the women's basketball side out in Philly, they took care of St. Joe's as well. Megan McConnell, 40 minutes. She played significantly more than anyone else on the team as Dan Burt was kind of mixing up different lineups. 40 minutes, 19 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists, and 6 steals. She also had 6 turnovers. Can't leave that out of the box score, but those numbers are astronomical, and it's in classic Meg McConnell fashion that it doesn't even look like it's taking all of her effort. It was a spectacular game for Meg. On top of that, man, there were some clutch moments down the stretch. And again, I wasn't in attendance for this one, but got to watch it during the breaks of this Duquesne men's game. Mackenzie Blackford and Gabby Hutcherson made some absolutely clutch threes late in that game that Duquesne needed. Like St. Joe's had this Duquesne team. They cut the lead down to 1 in the last few minutes. They had this team on their heels, and it seemed like all the momentum was in the favor of the Hawks. Gabby Hutcherson and Mackenzie Blackford, they're not going to show up as the leading scorer in many games this year, you have to assume, but they can step up in these big moments. Look, Mackenzie Blackford is a freshman. She had 13 points, 4 rebounds, 3 of 5 from 3-point range, and 4 for 4 from the free throw line, with perhaps I would say is easily the two most important and most high pressure free throws of her young career, as well as the most important 3-pointer of her young career. And she drained it. She drained both free throws to clinch the win for the Dukes. Blackford did all of that in, let's see here, just 17 minutes. So 13 points in 17 minutes and some of the biggest shots of the game, some of the biggest shots, I'm assuming, of her young basketball career. Shout out to Mackenzie Blackford. Shout out to Gabby Hutcherson. Massive three. You could tell how much that meant to her and her teammates. That's kind of the last thing I want to focus on here is throughout this game, and it's hard to see from TV when you're not there. It looked like there was some chippiness between some Duquesne players at times. And I don't know what that's about. Again, I don't want to speculate what any of that's about, but you could tell, they were either upset with what each other were doing or there were some miscommunications and whatnot. And that'll happen. That'll shine through when you're 0-3 in your league. Like this isn't what Duquesne, what any of Duquesne's players, what any of Duquesne's fans or coaches expected out of this group to start 0-3 in the A10. But the way that they rebounded and responded from those low points, again, watching from third person, I don't know any of the details there. It was impressive. It was clear, it was evident that this team rallied together in the late stages of this game in the hardest of times to come through and win it. So hats off to Meg McConnell, hats off to Journey Kyaku, and that whole Duquesne women's team, as well as Keandra Brown also had 10 points in the win. Dia Moore had some moments as well. So great win for Dan Burt's squad. A great win for the Duquesne basketball community, for both the men's and the women's program. Thank you guys for tuning in. Be sure to like this, comment if you watch the games, comment what you think of the show. Let me know what you want to see more of. Always looking to dive into more topics in the Pittsburgh basketball scene. Thanks for tuning in.